when I would use, I had nothing better to do, and I would just, go ask people for money and come back, and then I would just basically pass out.
A walk downtown with an addict.
So you would buy drugs right there?
Oh yeah, majority that was down there, right at the opening of that is where they would be.
Allie York's drug use became more expensive than the cheap motels she would live in, and more important.
Where would you sleep?
Right there on the sidewalk.
So basically on this sidewalk that we're on right now?
Yep.
Allie wasn't always homeless or addicted to drugs. She grew up privileged. Faith was in her life, but early on she knew she was gay.
I didn't really know how to feel. It was very conflicting, so the opiates just made me feel okay.
Allie took her first opioid, a Loratab, at 16 years old.
And it had progressed that drastic to Oxycontin in probably a matter of 6 months. It was very, very quick for me.
She would convince her friends to give her leftover prescriptions, but it wasn't enough for the now 19-year-old.
I would rob people. I would steal. I would pawn things from my parents.
Her pill addiction, now up to $300 a day, Allie needed a cheaper high.
And I had somebody that was in addiction explain to me that there really wasn't much difference, that, Oxycontin and heroin are basically the exact same thing.
Allie also abused alcohol, which almost killed her. She recalls waking up in the hospital with a nurse at her bedside.
She proceeded to tell me what, my blood alcohol content was, and it was a 0.52, and that I was a miracle that I had survived.
Since 2016, Utah was one of 33 states to receive more than $12 million, specifically for overdose preventative resources. Yet over that same time, non-fatal overdoses have gone up each year.
How many overdose calls have you been on in those 4 years?
Probably 300 or 400.
11,814 people have needed help for an overdose by a Utah first responder since 2016. These are people who did not die. About 40% of those happened in the Salt Lake Metro, the area paramedic Garrett Wood works in.
It's not surprising that there's that many. I think there's probably more. I mean, it comes in waves, but some seasons we'll go on 10 plus a day.
Utah was one of just 4 states the CDC says saw a significant increase in opioid and all drug-related non-fatal overdoses. Wood says they happen everywhere.
We'll go into a church, we'll go into a penthouse. It's everything.
And I got that to represent.
A story Allie knows all too well as she's back walking the streets she once lived on, this time sober.
Do you still feel like you're a walking wounded?
It's different. It's a different walking wounded. I think I'm on the recovering side of that walking wounded. It's no longer the same pain and that same feeling.
Mandan droga aquí a Utah porque en Utah hay mucho consumo y
Cartels are primarily interested in bringing drugs to Utah because there's a lot of consumers and they pay more.
The cartel gets their product to Utah with the help of everyone on their payroll.
alrededor de $15,000 para pasar gente para acá sin ningún problema.
The cartels have corrupt contacts along the border. Individuals they'll pay a border agent $15,000 to allow the drugs to come through or to allow human smuggling to occur.
That's the voice of a man sitting in a Utah jail charged with distributing drugs and returning profits to the Sinaloa cartel. He says they often do business on the side of the road or in a parking lot, but go to great lengths to stay undetected.
Debajo de la lámina o en los asientos.
The cartels are very good at transporting drugs in special compartments, customized cars.
Defrosters on.
Like this, which officers seized in Utah County, but new product can come into Utah about twice a month.
Y son los que más reparten con los demás güeros.
The primary people that the cartels are targeting are, white kids, because they're the ones that have the money to buy it, and also they're the ones that distribute the drugs to their friends.
Is Utah cartel friendly?
Utah is absolutely cartel friendly.
Drug runners are not the only ones saying it. The officers trying to catch them are too.
Why do they like Utah? It's, I call it the crossroads of the West.
Lieutenant Dennis Harris heads up a major crimes task force. He says the location of Utah and north-south and east-west highways make a perfect distribution path.
Utah becomes a strategic part for the cartels in the transportation of their drugs.
Since Lieutenant Harris took over the task force in 2012, they've seized more than $100 million in street value drugs. But he says they can get even more.
Drug dealers don't.
So does Special Agent in charge for the DEA, Brian Besser. He says Utah's forfeiture laws restrict their ability to search suspects.
They look at us and they laugh at our laws, they laugh at our enforcement, they laugh at what we do, because sometimes they're better at it than we are.
Besser says he knows this because his agents listen in to tapped phone conversations.
They make fun of Americans because Americans have an insatiable appetite for drugs.
But it's more than an appetite for drugs, says defense attorney Aaron Tarrin.
Everybody in the judicial system, from judges to prosecutors to police officers, even defense attorneys, we're making money off of this problem.
Tarrin says some people learn to become better drug runners while in jail, which the cartels bank on.
Fortunately, we see a lot of good kids that get caught up with the cartels.
He's critical of a system he says rarely provides proper rehab or second chances.
Everybody kind of has an incentive to not fix this problem.
Which is even harder when a ruthless cartel lives by one simple motto.
Has potentially two definitions. One being either you pay up or you take a bullet. The other one being either you let us pay you or you take a bullet.
When people are dead, they can't recover.
Keeping a person alive is the most rewarding thing Mindy Vincent gets to do.
Someone did it for me. Lots of people did it for me.
In 2016, Mindy started Utah's first legal syringe exchange program. Addicts return a dirty needle for a new clean.
We have exchanged, well, over $500,000. It's probably closer to $1 million by now.
Now Mindy wants to see Utah take the next step, something like this safe consumption site she visited in Switzerland.
Are they effective? Do they work?
Yes, no one has ever died in a safe consumption site in the world.
Mindy says we already have plenty around Utah, hiding in plain sight.
They are in the porta potty at the Pioneer Park. They're at the 7-Eleven. They are in the Burger King bathrooms.
So the push now is to legalize and regulate them. Democrat Representative Jennifer Daley Provo is leading the charge with the Safe Consumption Site bill.
We just have to look at better ways to address the problem head on.
Sites wouldn't be run by the state or even use public funds. Instead, organizing groups would monitor every injection, assess risks, and help set treatment goals.
We have good data, and I think that now is the time because we know that it works.
Parts of Europe and Canada have had safe consumption sites for years. Health officials in British Columbia say 3.6 million clients have injected illicit drugs under supervision since 2003, and they confirm nobody has died. More than 24 studies show fewer public injections and syringe sharing while more people are getting help.
We're talking about injecting dangerous drugs into the human body and helping and assisting and subsidizing someone to do that. That seems outlandish.
U.S. Attorney for the District of Utah, John Huber, says injection sites would destroy the community while normalizing drug use to younger people.
They will be met with swift and aggressive responses from my office and the Department of Justice.
I asked Huber about cannabis being legal in medical form, which is also against federal law.
I reserve the right to bring cases in the right circumstances, whether that's marijuana or opioids like we're talking about today.
Physician Terry Sellers isn't convinced either.
It's an interesting dichotomy that the drugs are illegal, but we're going to provide a safe place for you to use them.
Dr. Sellers is a recovering addict himself, and he doesn't want a safe consumption site to be an addict's first choice.
Harm reduction should be applied to people who have proven they can't stay clean and sober without it.
Which is the exact problem Mindy says many people, like her sister who died of an overdose, don't live long enough to see.
We can fight about how recovery needs to work later. We've got lives to save right now. You know, people are dying.